At some point in your career, you're probably going to have to build a report using REXX, and REXX fortunately has a bunch of great string handling functions that are built right into it. And at the end of this video, we're going to combine all of these functions that we learned about in order to produce this report that's on screen. Now, I have to give credit where credit is due. This is actually a modified version of a COBOL report that you'll build in the Eli Madison Memorial Apprenticeship Program using COBOL, and I'll leave a link to their website down below in the description. So the functions that we're going to cover today are center, copies, right, and left. I should note that there is a justify string function for formatting as well. However, I am not going to cover it in this video. All right, now I've already copied the string that we're going to be using. It's that International Investments Fund, and the first function we're going to make use of is the center string. And so in order to make our REXX script nice and tidy, I'm going to store this layout in a series of variables which we will eventually output to the screen. To start, I'm going to use the very first one called header top. I'm going to save that, and let's discuss center here. So center, it takes a string as its first parameter, and then it also has a secondary required parameter, which is the length of the string. And there is one optional parameter called pad. If omitted, pad just defaults to blank. And what's going to happen if we supply a string that is longer than the number we valued is it's going to get cut off. So I know this is 30 bytes. We have it set there. Let's go ahead and say it is 20 bytes though. And we're going to save that. We'll run it. And look at that. I have forgotten to output it. So let's go ahead and say header top here. And let's clear and try to run this again. And sure enough, you notice that it's not long enough to fit there. So this is an example of what would happen if you tried to use the center function but didn't give it adequate space. Now you might also be at this point realizing, now wait a second, this doesn't look like it's centered on screen. And you would be correct, it is not. And that's because we are only giving it enough room to fill up the string itself. So what I want to do here is come over to the report, and we're going to count off how much space we need to have here. All right, so we see that from here to here is 55 bytes, 54 bytes, or characters. And we're going to update this to say 54. And we're going to go ahead and save, clear, run it again. And this time you notice that it is indeed centered as much as it can be in the terminal. So this is how we use the center function in REXX. And next up, we're going to make use of the left function. All right, taking a look at this report here, we can see that we're going to have three columns, and 2 of those columns are left justified and 1 is right justified. And to begin, we will use the left function. And I'm just going to count out how much length I need here. It looks like I'm going to need 13 for the first one, and we're going to need 18 for the second one. So let's come over here and make a quick comment. The first column is going to be 13 bytes. The second column is going to be 18 bytes. Now, let's give ourselves a little bit of space here, and we're going to create a variable called header calls top. And the first thing we'll call is the left function. It accepts a string followed by a number, which represents the length. And we can also add a padding option on there as well if we want to. We're not going to take advantage of that in this particular video. So the first one is branch name, and because we have our comments, we know that it is 13 bytes. And we know that we're going to have to add a series of these, so we're going to concatenate it. We are going to use left again, and this time it will be broker name, And because we have those handy comments again, we know that it'll be 18 bytes. So let me go ahead and add this to the output here. Say header calls top. And I'm going to save that. We're going to clear the screen. It's already cleared. We can run it. And that looks pretty darn good to me. Now, one thing I will note here is that this is only 13 bytes. So when we have something that takes up the entire space here, it's going to butt right up next to this broker name, and we don't really want that. And there are a couple ways that we could do this. I'm going to use the copies function in order to do this. And copies, as it sounds, it takes a string and then it takes a number, and that then replicates that string that many times across the screen. So I'm going to come up here right before this left here, and I'm going to add the copies function. I'm going to add a blank space as my string, and we're going to do it 13 times. Sorry, 4 times. And well, there's a little dialogue there. We'll take care of that in a second. Now, the reason that came up there is because you can see on the right there, I have run out of room, and we need to do a new line, and we can do that by simply adding a comma here and pressing enter, and that allows us to continue on our merry way on a new line. Now we have that, and we're going to replicate the above again because we need an extra bit of spacing. Copies, that's going to be another 4 spaces. And what we need to do at this point is we need to go back over and figure out how many bytes we need for the last one, which is the sales amount. So let's go ahead and do that right now. We're going to pop over here to the sales amount, and it looks like we're going to need 15 bytes. So we will come back over to our code window. We're going to make a comment here. The third one is 15 bytes. And with that, we will continue to a new line. We will do the write function this time, and say sales amount is 15 bytes. So with that in place right now, let's go ahead and clear this terminal, and we'll run it. And that's looking pretty darn good if I do say so myself. And from here, all we have to do is add a few more elements. One will be the dashes below each of the column headers, and the next will be just some string output to match the report. We're not going to do anything fancy. They're just going to be strings. So go ahead and pause the video at this point. I want you to take a moment to think about how we might add those repeating dashes underneath the column headers. So now that you've had some time to think about it, let's go ahead and implement this. So let's give ourselves a little bit of wiggle room here. We're going to create a variable called header calls bot, and we're going to use the copies function. We're going to add a dash, and based on our columns, we have 13. And then we need to add some spaces, so we'll use copies again. 4 copies. We'll do that. And we're going to do 18 there. And for the final one, we're going to do it again, but with 15 bytes. Give ourselves a little space there. We're going to add header calls bot to the mix here. We're going to clear our output, and let's take a look at what we've got going on here. All right, that looks pretty good to me. Now to wrap this up, we just have to add that final bit of output, which would represent the data. So let's go ahead. I'm going to copy the number real quick off screen. I'm going to create a variable called data, and inside of that, we are going to place our information. We know that we're going to use the left. This will be Seattle. It's going to be 13 bytes. And then we're going to also use copies to implement 4 bytes of spacing. We're going to do a line continuation, even though we probably don't here at this point. And I think my name was in there, Johnston, which was 18 bytes. Add that spacing back. And for the final thing, we're going to call the write function. And you guessed it, it's going to write justify things. And I'm going to paste the dollar amount in there, and we know that that is 15 bytes. Give ourselves a little bit of space here, make sure we add it to our output. And let's take a look at what the final output looks like here. Yep, there we go. That looks pretty good to me. Let's go ahead and go back to our reference report here, just to make sure. Yeah, that's right aligned, left aligned, left aligned. It looks like I could add a little bit of space here to match it, and so we'll go ahead and do that real quick. Hop back over here to the code window, and all we have to do this is right here. I'm just gonna kind of cheat here. We're gonna say that we're gonna copy and spaces 54. We really don't technically have to do this, but I'm gonna do that. Let's make sure that is 54. Yeah, 54. We're gonna clear the screen, and that looks really good there. That looks pretty accurate. So in this video, you have learned how to use the left and right and center and copies function to manipulate strings on screen. Until next time, this is Stephen for New to Zed, and may the code be with you. And if you found this video remotely interesting or helpful, please like and subscribe. It really helps.